Hello and welcome to yet another PoE boss fight. This time we have Sirus, Awakener of Worlds. Sirus is one of the pinnacle boss fights in Path of Exile that we can access by completing his own prerequisite content in maps. And that content are his guardians. There are 4 guardians, as you well already know from Shaper and Elder fights, and his guardians are Baran, Alhezmin, Veritania, and Drox, or Conqueror, Hunter, Redeemer, and Warlord. Those are 4 of them. And when you do their maps, once you do their own separate mechanics, video of that in the description below, I have a guide on their mechanics as well, you will get their own crests. Once you finalize the circle of crests, so once you get all 4 of them, then you will put it in the map device and the encounter will start. There will be 6 portals to Eye of the Storm, which is Sirus's arena. And once you enter, you will see here Sirus sitting on his chair and then popping up with his shade. And there's going to be the longest RP ever in the world, so you want to skip that. Once you skip it, you will enter through one of the map devices behind him to the Templar's laboratory, and then we go outside through the stairs and once again through to Oriath. Now, when you start the encounter, you always start it from this place, regardless of if you have died in the encounter or not. So be careful there. I will tell you about the possible bugs that can appear once we get to the final phase. But once you enter the Oriath, you will be greeted by one of Sirus's voice lines. Whichever of these voice lines are, that's the mechanic he's going to do. I will cover all of them, nothing to worry about. First mechanic that you will see, however, are these storms. These storms are big circles that deal a bunch ton of damage, which can be moved when a player stands roughly close to them and it goes away from the player. So player stands and it moves away. It moves away very slowly at first, like these, but there are later ones in the encounter that will move a little bit faster. So these ones, you will take a bit of drain damage and you just have to move through them, and that's it. Now, I will cover all of his mechanics that he has outside, but first let's cover the 3 basic intermission phases that Sirus has. Once you approach Sirus the first time, he will say his RP lines. What is this? A real challenge. You finally caught my attention. So this phase has only one mechanic. He has his basic attack, which is a laser that he shoots from him, and he has a mechanic die beam, or die beam, which is basically 3 elements firing in only one direction towards the player. You can dodge this beam. Let's play it again. So that can be dodged by moving to the side. That's basically it. That's the mechanic. Now, when it comes to the shade above, the shade is intentionally made like this so it obfuscates the player's vision so that the encounter would be more difficult. Now, the shade will also pop with a circle around the arena, the red circle, which is a mini arena. If you leave that arena, Sirus goes back up in the air, pops a storm, and he heals until you reach him again. So don't leave the arena, at least try not to. But Sirus only does basic attacks and die beam there himself. Now, occasionally you will see the shade dropping down things on the ground, like these are some red things on the ground that you should avoid. And he also drops the 2 beams, which I think he did at the start here. So he did these 2 beams here, and they don't explode, they just do it like that. And he has one more mechanic, which is this one. That's going to appear right after this. Pay attention to the ground. You will see roughly now, if I'm not mistaken. There it is. You will see these like little stars that appear. Those stars are where Sirus is going to toss mini meteors. Avoid them, they hurt. They are outright lethal. Once those stars hit, he will drop a puddle in which you cannot regenerate life or recover life in any way, shape, or form while you're standing on these puddles, so please don't stand in the puddles. Once you reach 75, once you get him to 75% health, he will go up again. He will say, watch beauty crumble, and on his location, he will spawn another storm. Now, there's one mechanic that you should pay attention to, and that is whenever Sirus goes up, he always goes to the top left side. There are stairs at the end of the map. Top left side. So if you want to, he always keeps moving, floating in the air. So what you want to do, a pro move, would be whenever he phases, you move to the left so that you push the storm to the right so that he doesn't travel a long distance. You will see it here. So he pops a storm, that's a full storm, and he does some mechanics, and you can see how I wiggle my mouse around so I push the storm towards the other side. Here, he has a few more mechanics. This one is creation itself. He fires two beams that when they combine, they make an explosion. That's one of the mechanics. Second mechanic is Y resist, where he pushes these things again and they explode after the duration. That's the second. He has the third one, which you've seen in the mini phase, which are the meteors, the rain meteors, and he has obliteration, where he does the area in front of him, where he does the same thing as these piles. So he does the same thing, but like in a cone in front of him. So Intermission 2, he adds multiple of mechanics. So he will have die beam. He will add this one, Be Silent, which is legit a corridor, where he will always start firing these massive red balls. You will see them here. There we go. Starting from his right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand. How do you dodge these? You move diagonally, not like directly left to right, but you move slightly diagonally so you can avoid them. I'll play that once again so you can see how to properly dodge them. They are very easy to dodge. You can either dodge them directly or you can flame dash or whatever behind Sirus to leave this area, and he will stop the mechanic whatsoever. That's basically it. So once you move behind him, he stops the mechanic. So that's one of the mechanics that he does, one of the additional mechanics. And he has one more, which is basically sort of like a meteor. Like you will see that in just a second. This one. This world is doomed, or he prolongs it. He puts one wall and the direction where to exit the wall. Once you exit the wall, he pops a meteor, or after a duration, if you're still inside, this is basically lethal. So he does that in his second intermission. That's basically it. Once you get him to 50% life, he says your lives are meaningless, pops up again, and you move to the left side, he pops a storm. And then we do the same thing. He will do this Embrace Nothingness again, Glorious Flames, or Obliteration, by the way. So he does that. I will put the timestamp here. So that's in front of him. So you can see them here. 1, 2, 3. In front of them, mini explosion, and then bigger explosion. That's basically it. Now, when you get him the third time, he will say, is life really interesting enough to warrant all this pain? Drop down, and he will enhance the mechanic, one mechanic, from the previous fight, or the previous intermissions. So he will still do the die beam, usually after teleporting or after a few attacks. He'll still do die beam, but now his meteor is going to have 2 walls. So pay attention to that. That's enhanced. He will have 2 walls. So you have to run away from 2 walls. And that's basically it. And his own mechanic where he puts like those balls, puts you in the corridor, that stays the same. That's why I finished the intermission here. Once he reaches 25% life, he will pop again. So he will say the city is nothing. You also move to the left side. Everything else is the same, by the way, so don't worry about it. He will do again his mechanics, Fury of the Cosmos, be utterly annihilated, pointless, whatever he does, right? Once you reach him for the 4th time and final time, he will say, on the edge of death, my heart races, I am alive. He will merge with his shadow and drop down on the ground. Here is what's important. The most important thing here is to pay attention where he faces, because wherever he faces, he will teleport. He still has basic attack, as you see here. He has this mechanic, Everlasting Fire, where he disappears, reappears in one of the 4 positions, either north, west, east, or south, and you can damage him while he channels this ability. This is very important. Once he finalizes the channel of the ability, he will pop a center with 4 beams. If you touch these beams, you get action speed slowed. Just don't touch it. You can teleport over them, but you cannot leap slam, you cannot shield charge, you cannot dash without getting at least 1 stack. So be careful with that. You can use Flame Dash, Frost Blink, Mirror Arrow, and such. So you can use the actual teleport skills. Once he does that, I will talk about this mechanic in a bit, because this mechanic is going to be a little bit more difficult to understand without seeing it properly. So we are going to go after this mechanic, and we are going to go towards him. So pay attention, he has this die beam. But this time his die beam rotates and follows the player. So the die beam now, as you can see, it follows and rotates. Now, I have an aura on him that slows him, that hinders him. He does the between 45 and 90 degree angle of die beam. The best way how you can avoid that is look where he is going to teleport and you follow him and go behind him. That's the best way to dodge it, else you're most likely going to die. Here is where I'm going to cover the possible bugs that exist with Sirus. If you die due to anything in the Sirus fight, once you move back up, Sirus can shoot die beam the moment you enter the fight, the moment you enter Oriath. My solution to this problem is when you enter, sit still, wait 5 to 10 seconds. You will have the 1 minute, I think, grace period where you cannot be damaged. Sit there, that's it. Once you move, then you can continue the encounter. He won't do die beam. If it's his next scheduled one, he will do it, so be careful there. Second thing, he can portal you from the door to his Meteor Arena. Be careful with that one. And by portaling you, he can also get you stuck in his Meteor walls or his arena walls, whatever. Like, he can get you stuck there, you can't move and you will die. So be careful there as well. The best way I have personally found is enter the arena, enter the Oriath, wait for 5 to 10 seconds and then move. He most likely won't teleport you, but he can off-screen you, he can shoot you down, he can teleport you. Those are all the bugs that he could do. So be careful about it. Okay, let's continue. So that was die beam. And he will just continue his mechanics. The Meteor Labyrinth now has 3 walls. So if you have a Quicksilver Flask or if you have any quick mobility, you would want to use it here. Basically, you have enough time to walk out, but try not to walk back in because that can kill you too. He will still do Be Silent, he will still start right, left. So basically just do the same thing. Walk diagonally, and that's basically it. You can portal behind him, and that's it. Whenever he does Everlasting Fire, he will combine the mechanic with this one. Now, you will long for non-existence. He has a few voice lines there, but the most important thing to notice is this. Look at Sirus. Look what he does. So he finishes this mechanic, he shoots it down, and he will now face towards where he will teleport. Look, poof. He will teleport there. He will then spawn mirages of himself around the arena. Well, around yourself. And he will do the channel. Now, his actual model is going to do a slightly different look to what you are going to have, and he's always going to glow before anything. You will see the rest of them will turn towards the player, while he will always look at the player. That's the one, that's the real one. Like the ones that turn towards the player. I will play this mechanic again. So the ones that turn towards the player, pay attention now, you can see them, and they will like look towards and then turn towards, especially if you move. He won't. He will always lock you on. And you will long for red non-existence. So pay attention, this is die beam. You have an audio cue. Spatial audio is very good in Path of Exile. You have the audio cue and you have a visual cue. That's the most important mechanic you need to do. After that, he will also, again, look at the way, he will portal, and he can do the die beam immediately after. So be very careful what you do, because this combo is the most lethal one in this boss fight. From you will long for non-existence die beam, into teleport, into die beam. However, if you have a character that can block things, you can block every attack of his other than Degens. Rest of the fight continues the same way. So those are all the mechanics that he does. He just repeats them, nothing else, until the end of the boss fight, which you will see here in a second. Oh, we can cover one more time. We can cover this one. Okay, perfect. So for this one, let's just do this one cover so you guys can see how he moves. So pay attention to how I move, pay attention how he moves. So he will teleport there. You see where he teleports. When he does, look at the mirages. You can see how they all move, yet his one is fixated on the player. You can see how the rest are positioned differently, but his one is always looking at the player. And also, as you can see, this is the like leap slam that you cannot go through. That's basically it. That's the entirety of the boss fight. It is a little bit of a longer boss fight to explain, but it's one of the shorter boss fights to finish. It's around 5 minutes. If you want to do it like slowly, if you want to do it quicker, that's perfectly fine. More DPS is always better. You can do this with 400, 500, 600k DPS, no problemo. More DPS you bring, the better it is. But that's for Sirus boss fight. Sirus also has a Uber variant, which I don't have the fragment of. So he has an Uber variant, but that I won't cover. How do you get those Uber fragments? You do tier 17 maps and they will drop his fragments. Then you pop 5 and he has different mechanics, which I will not cover in these basic videos for the boss fight, as that would enhance other things. Now for the loot table and what he exactly says and things, you can look at PoEWiki. They have all the information about what he says, how he says it, and how to do the mechanics as well. So you can do that one, and there are also what loot he drops. But other than that, that will be it for this boss fight video. If you've liked this content, please do give it a like, sub if you don't mind. The info will all be in the description and on the website, so please do check that out too. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you in the next PoE video or stream. Have a good one.